Melanie Kendall. I'm Project Officer at We Care You Care. So We Care You Care is a campaign designed to reach carers across South Tees, and that's all types of carers. So it could be a young carer, it could be a kinship carer, it could be someone caring for an elderly partner. And the aim of the campaign is to provide people with relevant and accessible information to support them in that caring role. And so today's podcast, we're talking about care assessments and funding and what people are entitled to when they have care and support needs, as it can be quite sort of a daunting topic to look at. And I'm joined by Jade Lavan, she recently wrote an article for us on this topic. And Jade is Director of Lavan Dementia Care Services and a registered mental health nurse. So thanks, Jade, for joining me today. Do you want to just give a bit of background about yourself?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Melanie. So my name's Jade. I am the Director of Lavan Dementia Care Services. I'm also a registered mental health nurse. I've got over 25 years of experience, skills and knowledge in health, social care, nursing and education. I've always predominantly worked with older adults, people living with dementia and mental health in older adults in a variety of roles, from nurse, nursing home manager, educator, commissioning, and I also worked as a specialist nurse for a large national charity.
Oh, that's great, thanks, Jade. So the article that you wrote us, it was around the health and social care system, and I know one of the reasons why we chose that as a topic was because it can be so, if you're put in that position where you or a loved one needs care, it can be very sort of overwhelming navigating that system and knowing what you're entitled to and where to go for support. I know there's things like an assessment of need and continuing healthcare funding, but do you think you could just explain to us a little bit about those things, Jade? So, for example, like, what is an assessment of need and how would someone go about getting that?
Yes, of course. So when you or even your loved one are living with care and support needs, often navigating through the health and social care system can be quite overwhelming and stressful. So when you do have care and support needs, you often do require a combination of practical, emotional and financial support, and that's about living independently and being able to manage your activities of daily living. So care and support needs in general, they can be a result of having a mental health problem, dementia, ageing, long-term physical health conditions, a learning disability, even stroke or frailty. And if you do have care and support needs, you will often require support or help with medication, washing, dressing, cleaning, domestic tasks, meal preparation and even accessing the community. Anybody who has care and support needs is entitled to be supported by adult social care, and that is your local social care department at the council where you pay your council tax to, so your local authority. And you are entitled to what's called an assessment of need. Now, anybody can have an assessment of need, and it doesn't matter if you are self-funding or adult social care fund your care. Under the Care Act, anybody that's got care and support needs can have an assessment of need. And this is to look at your care and support needs. An assessment of need is carried out by a social worker from adult social care. They will usually visit your home to complete an assessment, and the assessment focuses on physical health, mental health, abilities to carry out activities of daily living, well-being, and your health diagnosis and prognosis. And an assessment of need has 3 stages, which is identifying needs, assessing eligibility and care planning. And a social worker can come out and do that over several visits. It doesn't need to be done at once, so it can be broken down so it's not so overwhelming. social worker also may need to speak to other healthcare professionals involved in your care or your health, and that's just to give them a better understanding of what your care and support needs are, to be able to put services and support in place to meet your needs, to keep you independent. Once that assessment of need has been completed, the social worker can then make recommendations around what care and support you may need. So that can be anything from a daycare centre, care at home, cleaning support, domestic. It could be that you know it's identified that you now need to go into 24-hour care. It could be respite care for the person that's looking after the person, and all of these things are called a package of care. A social worker can help you arrange your care and support and set up your care package regardless of your funding status. So that's whether you pay for your own care or adult social care pay for your care. So generally, when we look at care and support needs, once you've had an assessment of need, the social worker will look at funding and finances and the cost of care. So a general rule of thumb is if you have more than 23,000 of savings in your own right, you are considered self-funding. This means that you're responsible for paying for your own care or your own care package. If you have less than 23,500, you then may be eligible to have your care package funded or part funded, but then this is means tested based on income. People often ask about their own homes. If you do own your own home and you intend on staying in your own home with a care package, what we say is your home is disregarded because you're living in that home. So then a financial assessment and the means testing then focuses on your savings and your income. If you are self-funding, you may be charged what we call a brokerage fee by adult social care, and this is to arrange and to set up your package of care. Your social worker or the person that's carrying out your assessment of need or filling out your financial assessment should inform you of this brokerage fee. However, if you are self-funding and you don't want to pay a brokerage fee, you can set up your own care package, and you can ask the social worker for the completed assessment of need and the recommendations. And this will inform you of what type of package of care you need or what your needs are. Adult social care, they also have what's called a preferred provider list. So this can often help you make informed decisions about what care and support services you wish to need, especially if you are self-funding and you don't want to pay a brokerage fee. So a preferred provider list is a list of care services and care providers that have a contract with adult social care, and it's just helpful to use it as a starting point to understand what services are out there and what can be offered to you. If you are not self-funding and you are eligible to have your care package funded by adult social care, the social worker will arrange and support you to set up your care package. Sometimes what people don't know is, even if your care package is funded by adult social care, you're still entitled to choose a care provider or a care service of your choice. The social worker should give you a copy of the preferred provider list, and if you do not want to use a care provider or care service from the preferred provider list, you can seek an alternative as long as the care provider can meet your needs, and that goes back to the needs assessment. So when we talk about needs assessment, it is about meeting your care and support needs. If a care provider or a care service is not on the preferred provider list, adult social care can still fund your care, and this can be through what we call a direct payment. So under the Care Act of 2014, a direct payment is a payment also known as a personalised budget, and what this means is adult social care will pay direct payments to you direct or to the organisation to pay for your package of care or or your package of choice. And direct payments, they give people a lot of flexibility and choice on your care package and how that's arranged. So you've got more flexibility to meet your needs, really. So as we know, not everybody, one size doesn't fit everybody. So it's about being person-centred and about your package of care working for you.
Well, that's great, Jade. Thank you. That's really useful. So alongside the assessment of need, there's also the continuing healthcare funding, or sometimes it's referred to as CHC. What's that? How is that different?
So when you've got care and support needs, generally that initially comes under adult social care. But continuing healthcare funding, or CHC, is when your package of care is paid for through the NHS. This is usually when you've got long-term and complex health care and support needs. So continuing healthcare, it's non-means tested, which means it's free of charge, but you've got to meet the eligibility criteria. So the eligibility criteria for continuing healthcare, or CHC, is assessed in 2 stages. So you've got stage 1, which is a CHC checklist. If you meet that checklist, then you've got stage 2, which is the CHC assessment. So the CHC checklist is essentially a screening tool that's used to assess eligibility and to help determine the professional carrying out the checklist if you should proceed to stage 2 for a full assessment. So the CHC checklist can only be carried out by a health and social care professional, so a district nurse, a specialist nurse, a social worker, a GP, palliative care nurse. And a CHC checklist is made up of 12 domains, including things like breathing, nutrition, mobility, continence. If a CHC checklist is completed and it comes out mostly positive, this will then progress to a stage 2 for a full CHC assessment. So a full CHC assessment is usually completed by a continuing healthcare nurse assessor or a CHC nurse assessor, and this is done through a multidisciplinary or MDT team meeting with a variety of health and social care professionals who've been involved in your care. So that could be a district nurse, it could be your GP, if you're open to any specialist services such as mental health services, a diabetes clinic, the falls team, an occupational therapist. And then everybody meets together and they collate all the information, and it's about looking at your care and support needs. So a CHC assessment, it uses a standardised tool called a decision support tool, or a DST, and then this helps make the decision and determine if you're eligible. So a DST, or a decision support tool, involves a comprehensive assessment and evaluation of your health and social care needs. It also reviews evidence such as your medical records, examinations, assessments, and as I said, involving other health professionals in your care. If you are eligible for CHC funding, the NHS will then pay for your care. And again, under CHC funding, you should be given the option of having a personalised budget or a direct payment. Now, sometimes people hear funded nursing care. If you have rapidly deteriorating health support needs, so for instance, if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness like cancer, or you are close to your end of life, or you're being treated palliatively, healthcare professionals involved in your care can then apply for what we call urgent continuing healthcare funding, or urgent CHC funding, via what we call the fast track pathway. So when applying via a fast track pathway, there's no requirements to complete a CHC checklist. Instead, the health and social care professional involved will just complete the fast track pathway too. And this is because if you are, coming towards the end of your life or your palliative, you haven't got that time to go through that full process, and it's about supporting you when you need it most, and having that specialist support usually under a qualified nurse. If you are not eligible for continuing healthcare or CHC funding, you may be eligible for what we call funded nursing care, and there is a difference. So we often hear the terminology CHC, FNC. So funded nursing care is when the NHS pays for the nursing element of your care or your care home fees. So if you're in a care home and you reside on the nursing unit and you meet the criteria for funded nursing care, this means that the NHS will pay a flat rate directly to the care home for the nursing element of your care, and adult social care will pay the remainder of the care home fees depending on your funding status. So an example would be if I resided in a care home and I was funding my own care privately and I had a CHC assessment, if I didn't meet CHC funding, I might meet FNC funding, so I would then move on to the nursing floor. The NHS would pay the FNC element and I would continue to pay the health and social care element.
Wow, so there's a lot of information there to take in. Thanks, Jade. I mean, you can see why it is overwhelming for people when they're looking at this. But yeah, that's great. I think what you've done there, you've really broken it down and explained it. And what's the best thing for someone to do? Would they go through their adult social care team to kind of start the process?
Yeah, I would say anybody that's in a caring role, if you haven't got any formal care or support in place at the moment for the person that you're caring for or your loved one, or you feel that you've got care and support needs, I would always advise your first point of contact is adult social care or social services at the local authority or the borough council where you pay your council tax. You can contact them. You can give a brief overview of your care and support needs and ask to be allocated a social worker. You can ask for an assessment of need and a financial assessment. You will then be allocated a social worker, you'll then have some involvement. There is a process and that social worker will support you through that process and hopefully have the assessment of need, the financial assessment, and have some care and support put in place.
That's great. Thank you, Jade. That's really explained things well. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.